If you're not over how epic Black Widow is, raise your hand. While there's no doubt Scarlett Johansson brought Natasha Romanoff to life perfectly, it couldn't have been done without the added touch of special effects. So, what exactly does Black Widow's butt-kicking and motorcycle riding look like without the help of CGI, stunt doubles, and VFX? We'll give you a hint. Drastically different.
That's not up to you.
What would an Avengers film be without an epic slow-mo walk sequence? While this endgame scene may seem straightforward at first glance, watching the behind-the-scenes footage will tell you otherwise. The VFX team played a huge role in the moment by adding in their white time-traveling suits. While filming, all of the actors, including Scarlett, were wearing motion capture suits instead. The special effects team actually helped out the costume department with this one. The design for the costume wasn't complete yet, so they decided on adding it digitally. Black Widow's big face reveal while acting as Councilwoman Holly had us shook, but it probably left you with a lot of how questions. Scarlett, along with Holly's actress, Jenny Agutter, both filmed this scene separately on a green screen, and then the rest was left to the magical powers of VFX to sync and create that transition.
Can you give her a lesson?
If you can impress Tony Stark, you know you're doing something right. Scarlett performed this entire fight scene with Happy herself. It did take quite a few weeks of training with her stunt double Heidi Moneymaker, but by the end of it, she was flipping Jon Favreau on his back like it was her job. It kind of was. Although Heidi did admit there was a part of the fight sequence that she had to jump in and film herself. The stunt included a one-handed cartwheel that led to her legs around his neck, so that she was able to push him to the ground and flip him over. The truth is, during this Age of Ultron scene, Scarlett Johansson was barely present. Some shots were done using a motorcycle rig and an enormous green screen background. Others were complemented with additional footage that was added on with VFX later on. And Captain America's shield? Without special effects, it was nothing more than a tennis ball. The coolest part about the scene, though, might be the fact that Scarlett and her stunt double were made custom motorcycles just for the Marvel films. Stunt double Heidi had to take over for a lot of this epic hallway sequence in Iron Man 2. However, Scarlett was determined to film as much as possible and trained for 4 hours a day for 8 weeks to be able to include parts that were all her. But it wasn't without some hesitancy from the actress. When I first saw the sequence that they wanted me to do and it was completed and choreographed, I just thought to myself, oh my god, how am I gonna do this? To keep her safe, she was attached to a harness a lot of the time. In the end, having her included in the scene added even more realism to everything.
The last 5 years I've been trying to do one thing, get to right here.
Special effects were helping out Black Widow right until the very end. Her trip to Vormir with Hawkeye might be one of the most VFX-heavy scenes she was a part of. This soulful adventure was filmed in front of a large blue screen with the cliff edge being a platform that was constructed in the studio. A harness and wire were used for the final moments of Black Widow's story. Excuse us while we cry for a second.
Like some debris is coming down. You know what I mean? Like, you can feel the blast.
This Bucky car chase scene didn't look anything like the extravagant final cut we saw unfold on our screen. Bucky's actor, Sebastian Stan, wasn't even present for this part of the filming. Scarlett and Chris Evans filmed at a standstill in a studio car in front of a green screen. What makes the whole behind-the-scenes moment even more lackluster is that they also filmed without sound effects. They instead took directions on where to look and where to shoot from the director. The scene where Widow takes on Bucky single-handedly is another moment that looks completely different without the Marvel movie magic. Scarlett and Sebastian performed this scene themselves, but it wasn't without some added safety and effects. Scarlett was attached to a harness and a wire so that she could keep her balance on Sebastian's shoulder, and then safely get pushed off. Like the car chase scene, all of the action and sound effects in the final cut weren't present while they were filming.
Payload secure. Thanks, Sam.
Don't thank me.
I'm not thinking that thing.
Despite her dedication to stunts and fight training in the past, this moment was just a little too high caliber and dangerous for Scarlett to attempt. This means she was nowhere in sight for the filming of this sequence. It was shot with stunt doubles all around. According to the filmmakers, this helped the scene turn out more realistic instead of having to film multiple cuts, with shots of Scarlett intertwined.
Well, you pulled this off. I remember a time when that seemed pretty impossible, too.
Before Black Widow and Hulk kindled their little romance, things were pretty rough. Rough as in he chased her down while destroying everything in his path. However, for the filming of scenes like this, Scarlett would film with a green screen behind her.
Oh, thank God.
So they'd be able to add the Hulk in later digitally. The explosions we see in the behind the scenes were controlled pyrotechnics meant to imitate Hulk's destruction. Remember the huge boat featured in the opening scenes of Winter Soldier? Completely VFX. Check out this wild breakdown. For filming, Scarlett, Chris, and the rest of the cast actually just shot in a studio surrounded by a massive green screen. Scarlett still came flying in, but she was all decked out in a harness for safety, and instead of falling from a plane, it was just from her place a couple of feet in the air.
I'm gonna get a view like this.
We all know that Marvel didn't actually destroy New York City for this battle, but we also didn't expect it to be filmed the way it was. The moment that included Black Widow was shot entirely in studio with the actors surrounded by a ginormous green screen. The rubble of New York was added in with VFX later, apart from a few props like the classic New York taxis. Scarlett also had some help from her stunt team to execute all of the fight sequences she had.
Who here hasn't been to space?
Besides the actual actors, there wasn't much that was there during the filming of Black Widow's first adventure to space. And even then, Bradley Cooper wasn't sitting in the pilot seat in place of his character Rocket. Rocket, along with the entire spaceship, and Captain Marvel's suit were added in using computerized special effects. If you look closely, you can see the motion capture dots that Brie Larson had to wear in this scene. This earth-shattering, or should we say earth-blipping, battle in Infinity War was filmed on location, but they needed multiple blue screens to transform an ordinary field into the battlegrounds we saw in the final cut. They even have blue screen platforms to add dimension and help the actors by adding some realism to it all. With Black Widow on the front lines of the war, she was in the midst of all the special effects, like the Wakanda shields that were non-existent behind the scenes. Filming these moments took a lot of imagination on the actors' and directors' part. Mark Ruffalo hasn't been shy about how embarrassed he was to have to wear a full motion capture suit while filming amongst the other Avengers.
I've seen worse.
But during this brainstorming sesh, it definitely helped out Scarlett. Having Mark act out the scene instead of just digitally adding in Hulk afterward allowed Scarlett to carry out a proper conversation instead of her having to rely on imagination. Scarlett had her work cut out for her when it came to the Avengers films. 8 weeks of training for just one scene? Yikes. Luckily, the special effects teams were able to give her a hand when it came to making the scenes look epic. What scene do you think looks the most different without special effects? Let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching.